And we are recording, and I'm here in the Healing Mastery Summit with Brandy Gillmore, who has a PhD in natural medicine. So welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Healing Mastery Summit, Brandy.
Thank you, Ian, so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited to speak to you today. And for those that don't know about Brandy, she's a world-renowned speaker, and you're best known for your discoveries in self-healing, which is what this is all about. So this is going to be fun. And you have an ability to show back-to-back healing with people just using the mind, which we're going to speak a little bit about as well. And your words kind of spread all around the world because you did a TEDx talk, and I'd like to speak to you about that specifically. But you share an incredible healing journey, and you've been featured on other documentaries, and now you've helped celebrities, Olympic athletes, CEOs, and others all around the world sharing your cutting-edge discoveries. Now, was it the TEDx talk that launched you into this next level, or were you already kind of there before?
And I'm sorry, it broke up just a little bit. You said was it the TEDx talk that what?
That launched you into this next level?
I would say that everything kind of comes together. I would say, to me, I went through my own terrible injury, wheelchair, walker, cane, all of that. And after I got better, because I had done network engineering prior to that, I thought, people are going to think I'm crazy that I healed with my mind. And because I'm very, very analytical and an engineer mindset and all of these things. And so once I got better, I wanted to show people that they could actually get results. And so what I initially started doing is I initially started working with a doctor, was a chiropractor who was actually my last doctor. And so I started working with him, and I started showing people how to use their mind to basically do the same things that I did to get better. And at first, it was kind of like a process of reverse engineering.
Okay.
And so basically what I did is I started getting it to where I could show people how to release their own pain in minutes using just their mind. It took a couple years of a reverse engineering trying to figure it out to really do what I did. And then I would say what really shifted was that I started being able to show it under thermography. So I would say that even what got me the TED Talk itself to do my TEDx talk was being able to show results in a very short period of time. So that was huge. And I would say part of the reason that I wanted to do that is because I would work with people, and then I would see them the following week, and I would say, how's your pain? They'd be like, oh my God, it's so much better. Oh my God, it's been incredible. And I was like, so great. Look at how powerful your mind is. And they were like, yeah, but I did get a new pillow, and maybe that was also part of it. And there was other things. It's like people had a hard time believing that their minds could actually be powerful. Yeah. Yet from the placebo, we see it all the time. So I would say that being able to show it quickly so people didn't have a question whether or not it was their mind, that was one thing. And then being able to show it under thermography so you could actually see there was a physical change taking place. That was another thing that really allowed it to spread. And then the TED Talk, the TEDx talk, and then continuing from there. So I would say that was.
So I have so many questions for you about this, but before we get into that, if you could just explain the situation that you were in and how you got there. I actually never figured out how you ended up where you were. I didn't get to that point in the research, but share to them the situation that you were in. You were in a wheelchair.
Yeah, I can't figure out how I ended up where I was either. I'm joking, but it's one of those places you go, I would never think that that would be me. But I had both a car accident, and then I also had a fall. Okay. But I mean, prior to my injury, I had been like black belt martial arts, very, very fit, and very active life. And the last place that I would have ever thought that I would be injured. But I had, the car accident and then a fall. And immediately afterwards, I had been given a long list of ailments, and from everywhere from CRPS, which is complex regional pain syndrome, to nerve lesions, spinal end plate fractures, spondylosis, and a few other painful diagnoses, sciatica, different things like that. But Basically, on a good day, I could get around with a wheelchair or walker or cane. And on a bad day, I didn't make it out of bed. I didn't even want to breathe. I was in so much pain. And I was on morphine every day, some form of morphine, along with a handful of other medications for about 6.5, 6 years, something like that, 6, 7 years, somewhere in there. So it was crazy times. I was about, I was fading away. I'm a size 2 right now, and I was about 32 pounds lighter than I am right now, and I was a mess.
Wow. So, some people talk about destiny, and do you believe that that path was meant? Like, when you look at it in hindsight, is it like, I see, this was supposed to happen because of where I am now? Like, you're like the wounded healer. Like, for you to become who you are today, that was necessary? Or is it kind of just like, oh, this is what happened, this is where I am?
I would say it's all true. I would say that no matter what place we are in life, there's always a place for a positive choice. And we don't have to go through the negative necessarily, but sometimes it's the negative that then makes us really wake up. In other words, like, I've had people before say, because they're amazed at what I do, and they go, God, I wish I had went through a bad injury to then have my whole life changed. And I'm like, hey, you don't need to do that. Like, you can change. And even now, I think that when I really look at it, I think we all have opportunities to change. And I think we all have a point in life where like we've heard before, people don't change till they hit rock bottom.
Yeah.
And I've had 2 major, like, what I call my 2x4 lessons, where it's like, I got hit upside the head with a 2x4 and I really changed. And now I'm like, okay, universe, whatever it is, like, I'll change. Like, whenever I see something that's like, oh, you know what, I should change that. I do. But I think that where I was at the time, I needed that. And as far as it being my destiny, absolutely. I mean, it's so funny that I did network engineering and operations prior to my injury. Yeah. And now I like troubleshoot the networks of the mind and the body. And not only that, but I spent, 40 to 60 or more hours a week troubleshooting. Yeah. And the way that I got better was starting to look at the placebo and look at the mind and troubleshoot it. And I don't think that I could have ever figured out what I figured out if I hadn't spent years, day after day after day, troubleshooting, because it gave me this very analytical, very troubleshooting mind to say, nope, that's not the answer. That's what it is. Because I wanted to really figure out what made it work when it worked.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, so basically you're like a hacker. I'm actually writing a book called Healing Hacks, and I'm like in the last parts of it, but I'm like, hey, maybe I should, mention you in this book here, because honestly, that's like the true hack. You did it in a way that is scientific approach, essentially.
Oh,
right?
Totally. Absolutely. The thing is, so once I've been trying to get better and I heard, basically I went in for this, kind of what you do when you're told that you're not going to get better, you start looking for things outside of the box. First and foremost, you look for a different answer. So I went to a different doctor and different answers and kept trying to get different answers. And everybody kept saying, there's nothing else we can do for you. Yeah. And so I started looking at medical journals in like Israel and Mexico and everywhere I could find, and hoping for somebody to just invent something new.
Yes.
And so that's what I was looking for, is just something new. And then finally, like, I got this call to be part of this research study for a brand new procedure. And I thought, oh my God, this is it. They invented something new. This is my dream. Oh my God. So I'm, leading up to the study, I'm of course thinking, please don't get the placebo. I want the real treatment. And I get there and they get me all prepped for the procedure. And the doctor, he comes in, and I could just see this look on his face, and he's got this look, and I'm like, oh, something's not right. And he says, Miss Gillmore, we don't expect for you to get better.
Yeah.
You can't be a part of the study. And in that moment, like I really thought, what's the point of living? Like, I don't remember leaving the hospital, but then it's the next memory I do have is I'm laying there in my same bed that I've spent so long in so much pain. And I didn't like, I didn't really want to live. And then that's when the placebo came into my mind. You know, I thought, I had this like voice, I don't know, voice in my head that was just like, but Brandy, what about the placebo? And it was this moment of hope going, okay, wait a second. Everybody says that I can't get better, but there's a chance that the placebo works for people. How does that work? And so, so I went through a very analytical process, and it was, I mean, I was like meditating and sending energy. So I was trying everything, like eating perfect, all of these things, greens, fasts, everything that I could find. And so then I was meditating and listening to binaural beats and sending energy and visualizing and, you know, sending my pain away and doing all of these things for like a few more years and trying to convince myself that I was already healed. So much so that it made me feel like I was going crazy. I was like, I'm already healed. I felt like I was literally spend like 12 to 20 hours a day doing that, convincing myself that I was already healed, and it didn't work. And so to your point, I started going, okay, look, the brain somehow has the ability. How do I hack into this? How do I figure out if we know that the placebo works? I mean, that's proven. I don't need to reinvent the wheel. It's somehow proven that between spontaneous remission, the placebo, it somehow works. Right. How do I hack into that? So to your point, absolutely. It was a very analytical process.
That's amazing, because I, like you, have been in that situation. I know exactly what you're talking about. And to a point where I wanted to die, and I went to get a blood test, and I felt the worst, and they told me, oh, your blood's amazing. I wish I had your blood. And that's when I realized like the medical community couldn't help me out anymore. And I was done. And that's why I'm on this path today and love speaking with you, because you've done the real deal work. You know what it's like to be in a desperate situation, and you had to find a way out using your mind.
Totally. And to what you're saying, you know, people have that all the time where it's like, oh, nothing's wrong with you, or you're lethargic, nothing's wrong, or oh, the pain. It's almost like they shame people like, oh, the pain must be in your head, there's nothing wrong. They do that all the time. And if you think about it for a moment, that was one thing that I started looking at when I was going through my, when I started looking at the placebo and looking at the mind. I came across amputees. And it's like something like about 80% of amputees still experience pain. And I'm frustrated and laying there in so much pain. And I'm like, great. It's about an 80% chance that even if I amputated my body, I'd still be in pain. Over 80% chance. And so, what's that?
The phantom limb syndrome.
The phantom limb syndrome. So exactly. So if you think about it, if people that don't even have a limb, there's an 80% chance that they still have pain. And then anybody who, like, I feel like compassion for people who have pain, and it's like, oh no, it must be in your head, it's invalid. Like it's almost like they feel invalidated. They feel like there's something wrong with them or shamed. And it's like, hey, wait a second here. This pain is very real. And just because the medical community can't see it, right, doesn't mean it's not real.
Yes. And it's the brain that changes itself.
What's that?
Have you read the book, The Brain That Changes Itself?
I have not, but the brain is constantly, with neuroplasticity, the brain is constantly changing.
Yeah, there's actually a great part on that about a neuroscientist who uses a mirror to make the amputees think that their limb is working, and they got them out of pain by making the mind think that they're using their arm that's not there.
Interesting.
And, yeah, so you might be interested in reading that. It's a pretty awesome book. But it's about neuroplasticity. So basically, you used neuroplasticity in the process, correct?
Well, I mean, absolutely. I mean, because the changes that I make and everything that I do is all about rewiring the brain. So I would say absolutely.
Awesome. So basically, you were getting people results in about 2 to 5 minutes or whatever it was, right?
Yeah, typically speaking, it's it's anywhere from 2 minutes, like on the fast end, to I've seen half an hour. And it just depends on somebody else. The great thing is, what I love is that I'm not healing people. I'm showing people how to use their mind. And so it's like anything else. When you coach somebody, you're like, okay, look, I want you to do this and this. And so I'm coaching people and taking them through it. And their mind is powerful. And so, yeah, it just depends on, each person is a bit different, but yeah.
So was your TEDx talk censored? Did I see that somewhere?
Yes, there was, yes. And they put a note that it said it was outside the curatorial guidelines. They said, basically when I talked to them, they said that there seems to be a lot of demand for the talk and they're loving it, but they could get some heat for it.
Because it's not using like the general medical practices, essentially. Is that correct?
Yeah, you know what? That's what I was advised. So, and my thing is, either way, they have it up, and I don't want to say anything negative about anybody. So I just, yeah. So either way,
that's beautiful because that's what this is all about, anyways. Is like this is about people taking their power back. Might feel powerless. So what? Is there something that you could tell people who are watching this right now, who feel powerless, who are in pain, who are suffering, they've gone to medical doctors, and they haven't been provided any relief, that they can do or that they can do maybe now that would help them feel relief or feel better, or at least get them on the right path mentally, emotionally, whatever it might be?
One of the number one things that I would say is that, God, there's so many, is that first and foremost, there are 1.5 billion people in the world who suffer from pain and chronic pain, 1.5 billion. And that the amount of people with sickness and illness and different things like that was projected in the year 2000 to continue to increase until at least the year 2030.
Wow.
And not only that, but it's been following projections. It's been continuing to increase. Even in 2015, a second projection was made that the amount of people with 3 or more chronic illnesses would also continue to increase. So not only would more people be getting sick and having issues, but the amount of people with multiple issues would keep increasing. And so Einstein's quote that says, "No problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it." And the thing of it is, we have a problem. We have a problem. People are living, like, for the first time in like history, life expectancy is actually going down. It's been going down for the last few years. There's an opioid crisis because a lot of people are in pain and they're dying. I think it's something like, the last count I read was something like 500,000 people have died from opioids, or something, some insane amount. But the thing of it is that where we are with the traditional path, it's not working. And we can see, we have a problem. We have a problem that's getting worse. And to Einstein's quote, no problem can be solved by the same level of consciousness. So it's not just that we need to do it more and more and more and more and more because we've been doing that. Yeah. Instead, we need to look at things differently. And that's what's key.
Awesome. And so
we need to have a new state of consciousness.
So basically, when you say consciousness, can you equate that to a higher level of awareness of self?
I would say consciousness, we could make it a higher level of something or other. I mean, we could make it a higher level of self, but really looking at something in a different way.
Okay.
And so even if we look at the earth and we say, oh, we used to think it was flat and now we realize it's round, that's a different level of consciousness. And so
belief system, maybe?
Looking at something in a completely different way. Like, if the way that we're looking at it, the way that we're looking at health, the physical body, and we've just got to medicate it and drug it and cut parts out, and this is what should be, and blah, blah, blah. And we're doing it and doing it and doing more medications, more surgeries, more everything. And we're going backwards.
Yeah.
And so we have to look at something in a different way.
Yeah.
And when we start to even look at the body for a moment, we know that, kind of like if we know that the body's made of cells and those cells are made of atoms and molecules, well, what about atoms and molecules and energy? The energy of the body. So it's kind of like if you break a computer, what do you do? You have somebody take it apart and fix it at a deeper level. And so if you look at the body, if you go, okay, well, the bones or something's broken, you go, okay, what's smaller? What's the smaller amount? What's the smaller? Oh yeah, there's energy. Well, why don't we start fixing it at that level?
Yeah. So basically you're saying that you're looking at it from an energy perspective, and they say that what you look at, if you change the way you look at something, and this is actually proven, right? I think in quantum mechanics or quantum physics, that when you look at something differently, you actually affect the atoms or even in the cells on a cellular level, correct?
Yes, there's the observer effect, but it's even beyond that, like even beyond looking at something. Okay, so a lot of times people are always fascinated at how my mind works. And there's this time I was in a lab, and they basically, to do a study, they put me in a room, like in a freezer type thing,
Yeah.
locked me in there. And then in an adjacent room, they had me, they had a laser beam set up, like a photon beam.
Yes, I've heard of this.
And they asked me to use my mind to influence the photons that were in the other room. And they would have like a timer and a voice that would come on and say, go. And then it would say like something like stop. And so it would do that. And I would use my mind and not use my mind. And they had a photon counter there. So at the end, they could see how many photons made it to the end. And you could see a big difference between when I was using my mind and when I wasn't. So not just observing things, but it's beyond that. But I would say more to your point of as far as hacking and the analytical approach.
Right.
What I started looking at is when I started after the placebo, and I started looking at, okay, what's going on in the mind?
Yeah.
And then I started looking at amputees. So we went through that. But then I started looking at multiple personality disorder, where a person could have different allergies, different pain, different asthma, when they're in different personalities.
Right.
And I thought, wait a second, if all of this, like asthma or pain, could change if they're in different personalities,
Yes.
that's pointing back to the mind.
Right.
And then I also started looking at the fact that our bodies are constantly repairing and replacing cells. Like if you look at, we've all seen dead skin cells, I'm sure. But even bones, it's estimated that we have a whole new skeleton in about 10 or so years.
Right.
And so I started going, well, wait a second. As I looked at each body part, I'm like, the majority of the body, the physical body, is continuing to repair and replace different cells. So if the body's constantly repairing and replacing cells, why hasn't my body healed? It's been years.
Yeah.
And so, again, between MPD, between the amputee, between the placebo, and between looking at the body, the fact that the body's repairing and replacing itself, the brain is not like the physical body is. So everything just kept pointing back to the mind for healing.
So you were going to the root.
Yeah, I was open to wherever the answer was. The last place I thought it would be in my mind. And not only that, is like, but I think it's so cool because our minds are freaking powerful. They're incredible. And it's, this is what's amazing about it to me, is that if you look at another Einstein quote, imagination is the preview of life's coming attraction.
Yes.
Our thoughts help create our lives.
Right.
And so the funny thing is when I used my mind to help heal my body, the side effect, if you will, is that it changed my life. It's not a bad side effect. It improved my life. And it was just by creating change in my mind, the neuroplasticity, creating change in my mind healed my body, and it changed my life. So life-changing.
So can you give a detail of how you go about doing it to yourself? Like, how did you do it? And then if someone has pain, like I've seen some of your thermal imaging where a person has the neck pain, and then in 3 minutes, all of a sudden you see that the pain is gone. Like, what is the process? Is you're just asking questions and you're speaking to the subconscious mind?
Yeah, I would say that the easiest way to put it is this, and it's going to sound really stupid. Okay. just to warn you ahead of time. Emotions. If we look at something basic like emotions,
Right.
if somebody's embarrassed, their face turns red, or even anxiety attacks. Somebody can have a racing heart, shortness of breath,
Yeah.
or sexual thought, sexual physical response, different for men and women, but there's a physical response that occurs. And I thought, as I was looking at the mind, I thought, yeah, okay, we know that emotions affect the body, but how much can they really affect the body? We all know that. That's duh.
Yeah.
And then I started looking at it and going, well, somebody can be scared to death, or they can be bored to death, or even an infant that doesn't get enough love can die, or a senior who loses a spouse can die. And I thought, well, wait a second. There's embarrassed, there's, anxiety attacks, sexual thought, there's bored to death, scared to death. And I thought, wait a second. Beyond these like 7 emotions, what's happening with the rest of the emotions? Yeah. And not only that, but if even boredom can kill us, what are the rest of the emotions doing? And obviously looking at boredom or failure to thrive, infants and widows and all those things, or broken heart syndrome.
Right.
Looking at all these emotions and going, well, wait, if emotions can freaking kill us, what about hurt? What about loneliness? What about resentment? What are they doing that we're not noticing? And so it was like, let me look at this. And that's why I said it's going to sound stupid, because we've all heard emotions before and blah, blah, blah. But when we take it at a deeper level and we go, okay, emotions, and then we start to look at the fact that we all think that our conscious mind is running the show. Like whatever we're thinking is running our brain, but that's like 5% of our brain. 90 to 95% of our brain is happening at a subconscious level. And then taking it even deeper, it was like, well, emotions, these things that can actually affect us, store up in a subconscious mind. I mean, that's the reason that we can think about a song that we were listening to, hanging out with our friends in high school, and remember how we felt or what we were doing, or we can remember hurt from kindergarten or age 5, is because it's all stored there. Yeah. And so that's really what I do to help people get results, is I help them pinpoint the specific things that are going on in their mind and help them to shift.
Is it like a form of hypnotherapy? Like, are you accessing the alpha theta brain waves like when you're doing it, or are you just talking to them?
I'm just talking to them. And part of the reason for that is because, first and foremost, my goal is really to empower people. So hypnotherapy, I feel like I'm hypnotizing people into doing and being the way that I would want them. I want people to be present with it. Yeah. So a lot of times what I'm doing, basically what happened is, in going through my recovery, after I got better, I developed this ability to feel what other people are feeling. So if you're familiar, there's an actual medical condition for it called mirror touch synesthesia. But basically I can feel what other people are feeling. So it's like that, or you could call it, if you're quantum physics, you could call it quantum entanglement with non-locality. Or if you want to be really basic, you could call it like an empath on steroids. Yes. So whatever you,
I know. I said I can identify with that.
Right. And so what I do is I just know what to look for in the brain. Yeah. And I know that there are key things in the brain. And so what I do is I just basically help people to identify them. And then I just talk to them and say, and talk to them about changing that. And as they do, the pain releases.
So do you get into it on like a neuroscientific level, like where the emotions are trapped, like as far as like the limbic system, or is this like you're helping them release subconscious emotions, and as soon as the subconscious emotions get released, all of a sudden the pain that's stored in the shoulder or wherever it might be like dissipates, or like maybe a skin issue dissipates? Or have you seen an array of different health issues like disappear?
Yeah. But this is, so even like if you look on my website, you'll see a woman who had a tumor in her throat.
Yeah.
And she had a tumor she had a tumor in her throat 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
Tried like vitamins, supplements, everything, tried to get rid of it, everything she can, because she's not a fan of surgery at all. And was trying everything natural, energy work, Reiki, all of these things, couldn't get it gone.
Yeah.
Finally scheduled for surgery. And the night before surgery, her and I ended up connecting.
Wow.
And we spent an hour on the phone. And she did the work. I coached her to do the work, and she did it. She followed through with it. She showed up for surgery the next day, and her tumors were gone. And the ENT is like, I've never seen anything like this in my 30 years of practicing.
Yeah.
And we joked around because she got the cocktail. They still gave her the drugs and everything, and then they're like, we can't operate on something that's not there anymore.
Wow, that's incredible.
So, but to what you were saying, as far as do I work with whatever's in their subconscious mind and change what's in the subconscious mind? I actually don't. What I do is this. If we're going to think of it on a really, really simple level.
Yeah.
I like simple too. That's part of what I do is I break everything down so it's really simple.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
No
Forgot to shut that off. Bingo. There we go. I like to break everything down very, very simple. That's kind of one thing that that's always helped me to troubleshoot things, is breaking things down, making them really simple.
Yeah.
And if you think about somebody who has an illness or an injury, like you say, think of even people with pain, with rheumatoid arthritis or RA or different things like that. Everybody has good and bad days, right? You have a good day, you have a bad. Well, how is that possible? If you have a physical injury that's just stuck, how is it possible to have good and bad days?
Yeah.
That makes no freaking sense. Like even somebody with a sprain, they can have good and bad days for no reason, or or a broken bone or whatever it is. And so, more so, what I do is I help somebody to create the shift on the spot. So I identify what's in the subconscious mind, help them make the shift of really feeling differently about it.
Yeah.
And then what I do is say, now make sure to get this in your subconscious mind. So get it in over and over and over. Because in other words, the simplest way to put it is this, is let's say somebody's experiencing a feeling of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
And I help them to shift that and relax.
Yeah.
And they go, oh my God, this feels really better. And they stop having an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
And then a week later, they go back into anxiety.
Yeah.
The problem's going to come back.
Right.
And so what I do is I help people to show them what's specifically bothering them. And then the pain, or all different types of things. It's not just pain, but the pain goes away.
Yeah.
And then I say, okay, now make sure to reinforce this to get it in your mind so it's a permanent shift.
Yeah.
Because if you go back into the old, like let's say it's a feeling of anger or resentment or criticism, or whatever it is, if you go back into the old, then likely the pain is going to come back.
Yes.
And so what I do is I identify what's in the subconscious mind, have them make a conscious shift on it, and then ask them to take it at a deeper level to make sure to reinforce it to create that change.
Okay, so basically through repetition, they're creating a new skill set, which therefore changes like the pathway in their brain about how they relate to these things.
Exactly. And there's one other thing that I'm simplifying, and it's this. It's that we can see that emotions affect the physical body. We can see that, but we can also look at it and say that it's not like if somebody has anxiety, that they're going to have an anxiety attack. Right. Some people do and some people don't. What's the difference? Technically, what I found in my work is that it takes multiple emotions and multiple links in the brain. And the easiest way to really illustrate that would be to think about like making a cake. If you have flour, you can't make a cake. But if you have flour and you mix it with eggs and butter and blah, 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 you can make a cake.
Yeah.
And so, it's so with emotions, it's not like if you have an emotion that you're going to have a physical ailment. Like, oh, you're going to have like, oh, anger. Oh, now you're sick. Oh, fear. Oh, now you're sick. Oh, bored. Now you're going to die. It's not like that. It's an emotion, which is what I call the PSE, the primary symptom emotion. So there's a symptom emotion to it. And then there's also some other links that come together that then when other links come together, that's what creates the issue. And so what I'm doing when I help people to shift out of pain is I usually am taking at least about 3 to 12 things or more and showing them to shift it. And that's why I said, sometimes it can take 2 minutes if it's something if it's only a few different ingredients,
Right.
Or it can take a little longer if it's depending upon how many different things are going on.
So,
and of course, how stuck in it a person is. So go ahead.
So like if someone had trauma as a kid and they were like just brought up in a fearful, anxious environment, that would be like the primary symptom, would you say? Like somebody who's just like making decisions and living in fear. And then on top of that, they maybe have anger and like, it's basically like a recipe for disaster that you're deconstructing almost.
It's like a recipe. And I would say that the thing of it is that not everybody who grows up with anxiety and fear is going to be sick. It depends on if they have the full recipe.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Now, what about people who are maybe like poisoned by medication or something like that? Is that something that you can see people like on a physical level, like they intook poison? Can you help them with the mental aspect of that?
Absolutely. To me, when we look at it, I mean, and it depends on how poisoned they are. To me, everything happens for a reason. So just like you asked me if I felt like my injury happened for a reason, I would say absolutely yes. And I would say that everything that we're creating in our lives happens for a reason. And we could look at that in a woo-woo way where we say, okay, our thoughts help create our lives.
Right.
Or we could even look at traditional psychology where it's well known that people will marry people who are like their mother or like their father or caregiver from a young age. We see patterns, or people have patterns of criticism or patterns of attracting judgment, or we've heard, problems come in threes or different, which they don't always do that. But we can see that our thoughts are creating our lives, and it's and so I would say that everything happens for a reason.
Great. This has been awesome. I just want to be conscious of our time. So we got about 10 minutes left. So there are a lot of people that are stuck. They, especially when it comes to self-healing, so they're sick, they've tried everything, and they just get to a point where they feel like they've given up, like you. Why are they stuck? Like, how do people get stuck?
I would say a variety of different reasons. I would say that, when we really look at why people are stuck, I would say, this is what's good, is I felt like I was stuck about 500 times going through my injury. And as long as I kept going, I hit that next breakthrough.
Yeah.
And but that's what helped me figure out the process and everything. But I would say a lot of people get stuck because they're either looking at things very, very spiritual, and they're going, okay, well, let me just send energy, let me just meditate, let me send white light, let me do those things. And while all of those things can be great, we got to really look at what's specific going on in the mind. And so I would say that's one reason of stuck. I would say that one thing that, if one of the things I would say, looking at emotions in a different way.
Yeah.
I would say that is a reason for people getting stuck. And one of the things that I would recommend, if I was to go back to where I was and give advice, like as I did, in my own journey, one of the things that I started doing was really lifting myself. Okay. And part of the reason I started doing that was, my brain was stuck on autopilot of wanting to, it would automatically think about exit strategies, is what I call it, at the time. Like I would be laying there and I'd hear the trash truck go by and I thought, oh my God, could I push my wheelchair in front of I wonder if I could push it out fast enough into the middle of the road that the trash truck could then take me out. And then it was like, no, that's a bad idea. The poor trash man or woman, whoever it was, they're going to feel bad and guilty. And then also, I don't really want, killed by trash truck on my tombstone. That's just not not great. It was about, and thank God, because my whole life changed. My entire life changed. And so, God, it's to that point real quick. When we stop and look at it, suicide has become a leading cause of death. Second leading cause of death for certain age groups, fourth leading cause of death for others. And it's crazy.
Yeah.
And any of those people who are in a hard spot, who are struggling, who are so sick of life, God, I was there. And it's like, if they just wait and just really go, okay, let me just change.
Yeah.
I mean, thank God, like my whole life, like I'm in happy tears, probably 4 to 10 times a week for no reason and every reason. And I've been walking without a cane or anything like that. I'm completely better for 9 years now. And I'm still in happy tears all of the time. And I would say, looking at emotions and really, really starting to put in the happy and really creating that change. I would say part of the stuckness is because we're told that we can't get better. Part of the stuckness is because we don't understand our own mind, and we don't understand how freaking incredible we all are. And then part of the thing is getting ourselves to follow through and really create real change. And then not only that, but I think that one of the things that's really helped me is that I'm both very, very, very grounded and also able to look at things in a different way and not afraid to look outside of the box. Because in going through my injury, the engineer mindset was like, well, it's like my mind. I would say one of the things was being willing to look outside of the box and do things different, and being willing to say, okay, look, let me just try.
Yeah, and to add to that, for those that are listening that might be struggling and in pain, I was in the same exact scenario as you. I've been there more than a few times where it was like, I don't want to live. And that pain that I went through is actually my gift. And so hang in there and look to the positive, because it can be transformational and there are brighter times. And really it comes down to an intention, wouldn't you say? Like, if you make that decision to make it happen, you can.
An intention, making the decision, and then really following through and really getting, and really figuring it out. Because to be honest with you, like, I mentioned I was in martial arts. So I actually was inducted into the Martial Arts Hall of Fame and stuff like that. And I think the first time I won Junior Olympics was 12 years old. And even I dislocated my hip right before Junior Olympics and still managed to somehow win and fight. Wow. With it, so I grew up doesn't matter what's going on in your body, hardcore,
I was.
Yeah, even when I could tell you so many stories, but I was somebody, if I set my mind to do something, I'm going to freaking do it. Yep. And I tried to set my intention. I visualized every day. I pictured I was healed every day. I convinced myself over and over and over. I would write affirmations thousands of times a day, and none of it worked. Yeah. And to your point of hacking, that's what I was like, okay, why isn't this working? And I was frustrated. So yes, setting an intention, yes, believing is possible. And it's funny because a lot of people, I've had people before, even when I mentioned I first was working, I used to see people in an office. And people think you have to believe that it's going to work for it to work. And I always tell people you don't. And I had this guy who his wife and his daughter wheeled him in. He had just had a stroke, and his entire left side of his body was paralyzed and numb. And he had had a stroke. And so basically they begged him to come see me. And so as soon as the door shut and they left and it was just him and I, he goes, all right, you know what? Can we just sit here and talk? Because I know that you have to believe this stuff to work for it to work. And they begged me, and so I said I would come, but can we just sit and talk, and we'll just, tell them we had a session. And I was like, honestly, I can't do that. I can't bill you because and say that we worked, and I can't lie to your family like that. So you don't have to be here. It's okay. And I I said, let's just tell him it's just not a fit for you. And so I got to the door and put my hand on the door, and he's like, no, I'll do it. Whatever you want. I don't want to tell them no. And I was like, all right, but we're going to have to work, And so we started doing some work and all of that. And I was like, look, you don't have to believe it. I don't care if you believe it. Let's just do some things.
Yeah.
And we worked for about 25 minutes, but we got all the feeling to come back in the left side of his hand, in his left arm.
Wow.
Right. And he was like, I can't believe this is possible. And all of the time I have people who are like, wait a second, I don't believe this can possibly work. And those are the people like I love, whether they believe it or not. I love to show people, because then as soon as I do, I say, okay, what else can you do with your mind that you didn't realize you could do? Because we're incredible. It's like people have a hard time believing their mind's amazing. It's like,
I know.
let me just convince you you're amazing. And they're like, but could I really be? Can I? No, dude, you're amazing. And so,
I have a coach that said some people would fall over and die if they knew how amazing they actually were.
Yeah, don't die. Let's not put that link in their mind. I'm always,
That's true, but
yeah.
it's kind of a joke. It's like, if you really knew how powerful you were, you maybe, couldn't grasp it and understand it.
Totally. And the funny thing is that some of the stuff that gets linked in our mind is stuff like that, where somebody goes, oh my God, you'd die if you knew how amazing you were. Then people go, then the subconscious mind goes, uh-oh, I don't want to realize how amazing, because then I'm going to die. Like, this is how crazy the subconscious mind can be. Let's think about this for a moment.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of a cutter before? Somebody who cuts themselves.
Yes.
Okay. So somebody who cuts themselves, who goes through a trauma, okay, can cut themselves and actually feel a sense of relief, or feel a sense of control, or even feel a sense of euphoria.
Yeah.
And so if you think about it for a moment, part of the issue is that emotions don't make logical sense. I mean, if somebody goes to cut me, or if I go to cut me, I'm going to think, ow, stop it. Please don't do that. That hurts. Okay. That's going to be, for most of us, that's going to be like, ow. Okay. And so what happens is that when we get something that's linked in the brain, we can get things linked in the brain that makes no sense, like cutting ourselves, feeling like in control, or safety, or relief, or that makes no sense. But that's somebody's brain, when I can have complete compassion for them, right? Because the brain has been miswired. Yeah. And so things like that, where if you say that on a regular basis, like even if people don't believe it, you could like, oh yeah, like if people would fall over and die if they knew how powerful their brains are. People's brain will actually get that linked up, and on a subconscious level, they'll, like, on a consciously, they'll be like, oh my God, my brain's amazing. I want to know all about this. I want to know. And in the back of their mind, it'll get linked up. Oh, but I heard before, and it'll stop. Oh, I'm going to die if I figure it out. No, you won't. You'll actually live an incredible life. Like it'll be more amazing, more wonderful. But that's how crazy our brains are. Oh my God. Like all of the time. It's so funny. Do you remember during the, what was it? The 80s, there was that commercial that was like, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. And it's like fried eggs. Do you remember that?
Oh yeah.
Right. I never did drugs for that very reason, because that commercial was so deeply ingrained into my brain. And it was like, I don't want fried eggs for brain.
Yeah, the same thing happened with me with like the whole AIDS thing when I was growing up. It was like, like, oh my God, I'm not going to do anything.
Right.
Yes. There's a saying, which is what gets fired together gets wired together. And
totally.
So, yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time, because we're almost up, and I know you got another thing coming up. So what's the one last thing you want people to leave here knowing, thinking about, and also how can they maybe potentially work with you, or just last few minutes?
Last few minutes, I would say first and foremost, realizing your mind is powerful. The fact is the placebo has been proven more than anything in history. So if you doubt yourself, really realizing that our minds are incredible. And when we start to understand how to use them to heal our body, it's life-changing. And then I would say also people are always going, okay, well, what's the problem in my brain? What's the problem? And if your brain's already, it's like lift first. I always, like even in my process that I teach, step one is lifting first. Then we go into identifying what the specific things are. So lift, because if somebody's like, it's kind of like if let's say that criticism is hurting somebody's body, and then they go, well, I'm going to dive into this feeling of criticism and explore it. And then their brain is completely immersed in exploring criticism. You don't want to lift first and really start to bring that in is powerful. As far as, so it's a lift really. And not only that, it's better for your life, your happiness, your health, everything. It's incredible. And the level of happiness. So that, as far as working with me, my website is brandygillmore.com. I have a podcast there. I have free trainings there, different things like that. People can dive in and really start to learn the process. And the last words also would be, Ian, you're freaking awesome. And I love what you're doing in the world, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. Same for you. I really appreciate this. And brandygillmore.com. Also, Facebook, brandy.gillmore. And Instagram, Brandy Gillmore /Brandy Gillmore. And there you have it.
Awesome. And by the way, Gillmore, Brandy is with a Y. Gillmore is with 2 L's, by the way. So
perfect.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us, and we really appreciate it. Have a great day.
Ian, you're awesome. Thank you.